Good evening, everyone. This is Suzanne Knabe-Nicole from Police Science Doctor. Now, the website policesciencedoctor.com is a place where you will find translations of research in the fields of investigative psychology, criminology, and other related police research areas that have been translated into videos. So I know that most police practitioners don't have access to academic research, but some people are nevertheless interested in finding out how they could police better. So for those kind of people, I translate research findings into videos that are easily watchable. Go to policesciencedoctor.com and just have a look and see what you want to watch in the free video gallery in the library. And there's actually an interactive video when you go to the watch page, which will help you decide which videos are for you. So just select which areas of most interest to you, and the interactive video will suggest which videos might be the most relevant to you. The other thing that Police Science Doctor does is every Tuesday, the people on my email list get special treatment, and I send them 3 police science snippets. So they get the 3 snippets that I've selected from research papers that I've been trawling through, and they get them emailed into their inbox. And they also have the links to the original research. Some of it is behind a paywall or behind a subscription wall, but you can always read the abstract. The abstract is a bit like a summary. This is what it's about, this is how we did it, and this is how we found. This is what we found. The other thing that you get when you add yourself to the email list, and the email list is free to be part of, is you get access to the secret password protected read page on the Police Science Doctor website. So on the website, I've got a read page, watch, and listen. And the listen page is the podcast. So every video that I've published is also available as a podcast if you're out and about, but you still want to hear all the goodness. And the read page is password protected, and only those who subscribe to the Police Science Doctor email list get the password to access that. And on that read page, you will find the transcripts of every video. You may be wondering, why would I want a transcript? Well, obviously, it lists everything that is said in the videos, but also you've got timestamps, you've got references that I mentioned in the videos, and you've got the key learning points highlighted. So if you just want to go over the content again, this is a really good revision tool. You can download the transcripts as PDFs if you want, and you can build yourself up a library. And it's the same with these police science snippets. All the snippets, and there's 13 of them as of today, are available as PDFs to download for people who have access. So go to policesciencedoctor.com and just input your details onto the registration form there. And you will only get good stuff. I don't send any spam out. And if you don't like what I'm sending, you can always unsubscribe. But this is really a good way for me to communicate with people who have an interest in what I do. And the people on the email list, they're always the first ones to hear about something that's coming up. Excuse me. So what I'm going to be talking about today is this week's science snippets, but I've got another announcement. And this is again about an interview I'm carrying out in 2 days. So Thursday, that's the 4th of March, 2 days from now, I'm going to be interviewing Ginny McKenna. Now, Ginny was a frontline police officer in the UK for over 20 years. And as many police officers and as many other people who've been working for the police, she's been through a lot of horrible experiences and a lot of stress, and she actually was driven to the brink of suicide. And the only thing that stopped her from actually seeing it through was her dog. So she was with her dog, she was trying to take her life, and it was just realizing that the dog would have no one to look after it that made her stop in the process, and she did not commit suicide, and that is how she's still with us today. Now, what happened instead is she did go back to work, she did a lot of work on herself, but actually, when she left the police, she became an accredited life coach. Now, I didn't realize this, but only 2% of life coaches are actually accredited, and she is one of them. And what she does, she specializes and only works with people who are in frontline policing or frontline emergency work. So this could be a police officer, it could be a member of staff, and she helps work them and walk them through the trauma and the stress and to get their life back. So she, excuse me, I don't know what's going on this evening. So what she does is she only works with people that work in an area that she knows about, which is policing. So she understands the challenges and the stresses that come with policing, the trauma that is caused by it, and she helps people work through that. And I thought that was really relevant to you guys. because most of you are in the police. So I'm going to be interviewing her today, on Thursday. So here it is again, 7 p.m. GMT. So if you're in the New York area, that's 2 p.m. in the afternoon. If you're in Australian Eastern Daylight Time, that's 6 a.m. on Friday. So for the early risers, let me just get rid of this so you can see the whole name. So Jenny McKenna. Now, onto the science snippets. 1 second. Maybe this will help. Usually, I've got 3 today. The first one is on domestic homicide. Research suggests that domestic abuse characterized by patterns of coercive control and or stalking is more likely to end in homicide. Now, a few weeks ago, I was interviewing Professor Jane Monckton-Smith all about coercive control and domestic homicide. And she was explaining to us that there's actually a very set pattern of 8 stages that a coercive control abuser goes through before they actually kill their partner. And there's a pattern, this pattern she has seen in over 400 cases that she was reviewing. And it's very, very similar in each of these cases. So this nugget that I pulled out, and remember, each nugget I pull out of research is something that is immediately applicable, something that is very practical, and something you can start thinking about straight away. So I'm not giving you theoretical, fluffy stuff. I'm giving you really practical things you can do something with. So if you think about domestic homicide, it can arise out of a variety of contexts and situations. It's often very hard to predict because sometimes the most, so actually last week I was interviewing Dr. Matt Blunt about domestic homicide and algorithms. And what he was saying is that in a data set he looked at, which spanned 5 years, and which looked at the incidence of domestic abuse between couples, but only looked at their first 10 incidents of domestic abuse that have been reported to police. He found that 80% of the overall harm that was caused in that cohort, in that group, about 80% of that was caused by a very small group of high seriousness offenders. And when I say very small, I mean less than 3%. Now, the tiny proportion of very serious offenders caused the vast majority of the harm in that entire group. Now, within that less than 3% of the highest risk of highest harm offenders, about half had never come to police notice before. So these are the ones that are really difficult to predict. And so there's a large variety of domestic abuse going on. Some of it may be only emotional, some of it may be only physical, some of it may be involving coercive control, some of it may be involving stalking. And what I've pulled out here, and there's a link to, it's not an article, it's actually a book where this came from, but the link to the book is there. So the point here is that those type of DA relationships that involve coercive control and or stalking are more likely to lead to murder than maybe others that contain other forms of abuse but do not include coercive control and stalking. So if you're working with couples where you know that coercive control is a factor, then maybe you might want to look at the interview I did with Dr. Matt Blunt, or the interview I did with Professor Jane Monckton-Smith, and just start becoming aware of the different kinds of domestic abuse relationships and the different factors that are involved in that. So the second snippet I've extracted for you today is about interviews. Now, this particular statement is not specific to witness, victims, or suspect interviews. It could apply to all of them, but just think about how you would apply that. Pre-planning both the questions and the topics to be addressed during an investigative interview improves the quality of interviews. Now, if you're an experienced investigator, I'm sure you do that all the time. In the UK, is part of the training anyway. You've got your topic areas, you need to cover your points to prove. But there's actually research behind that, not to just say that Ian makes the process easier for you because you've got a roadmap to follow and you've covered everything you need to cover, but it actually improves the quality of the interview. And the link to that document is in there as well. And the third one is about the cognitive interview. The cognitive interview is a way of interviewing usually witnesses that has at its core the desire to improve memory recall. So, like you may have witnessed something, you may have seen something, and you really want to try and remember the details, but they're there somewhere, they're somewhere in your brain and in your memory bank, but you're finding it really hard to retrieve. That's because experiencing something, encoding it, and then retrieving it, it's not like just watching back a videotape. Memory works really differently, and depending on how you access memory and how you try to retrieve it, and how someone influences you in that, for example, by asking you questions, that can manipulate the kind of memory you have. Now, the cognitive interview is all about optimizing the memory that you retrieve in the interviewee, in that you want more correct details to be remembered. You do not want to adversely affect the information that they're coming up with, that they're remembering. You do not want to change or lead their memory in any way. So it's actually relatively easily done to affect someone's memory. You can plant certain bits of information in such a way that the person genuinely believes that information you planted was part of their memory when it's not, which makes this a really dangerous process. So you could interview someone in a way that makes them believe that what you suggested happened. So that is very, very dangerous and should not be done. Interviews are always to get a correct account, to find out what exactly happened, what exactly the person remembers. And the cognitive interview is a way of trying to optimize that. Now, so the snippet that I've been prepping so long is research has shown that the cognitive interview is successful at increasing the quantity and the quality of information from interviewees, with 41% more correct detail recalled when compared to a control interview. Now, I'm not an expert on cognitive interviews, but I find them very interesting. I'd quite like to do an interview with someone on this, for example, Professor Becky Milne. She's a great expert on this. And you have the cognitive interview and you've got the enhanced cognitive interview, and you can compare that and run that against another different interview styles. But the cognitive interview is quite known for being very good at improving correct memory recall and decreasing incorrect information recalled. So, for example, in experiments, that is quite easily tested. So you get, let's say, a group of students, you make them observe something either on a video, or you stage an incident, and on the same day or 2 days later, or whenever you want to do that, you interview them either with using the cognitive interview method or using a different method, and then you know exactly what the correct information was and what the incorrect information was. For example, if the video or the scene they observed contained a blue car, you know that if they mention that is correct information. Whereas if they mention a black car and there wasn't one there, that is incorrect information. So if you have a controlled environment in which you do this, and you know the actual incident and it's recorded and you know what the details are, you can actually measure if something was incorrect or correct. And they have found out that with the cognitive interview, and it's not the first time that they found this out, you actually improve correct recall. So those are my 3 snippets, and actually the link to that, so in the email and also on the PDF on the read page of the website, you get the original, the full article. The full article is actually available under that link that I've posted there. The article is called "To Know Where the Bodies Are Buried." So sounds very intriguing. Right, so that was it for the snippets. And let me just show you this quickly to jog your memory. So it would be great to see you on Thursday. You can join us, and we'll be speaking about police stress and how to handle it. Ginny will give you some good advice and tips of how you can look after yourself when you're working on the front line. And I wish you a fantastic evening. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you for watching. I hope you found this content useful. You can get access to each episode's transcript with key learning points, timestamps, and references if you get yourself onto my mailing list. Just go to the main website on policesciencedoctor.com, and on the bottom of each page you will find a sign-up form for notifications of new content. Just enter your first name, your preferred email address, and the type of organization you work for. You will not get any spam, This is just for me to let you know about new content and for you to get access to all the transcripts.